Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again. And we have Mr. Stevens on again. Mr. Stevens, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Oh, you're very welcome. I enjoy talking with you guys.
All right. So, if you guys are not familiar with Andy Stevens, he is the state director for Gun Owners of America. He is also working very, very, very hard with Grassroots North Carolina. And I believe that he is also working with Liberty First Grassroots some too. Am I right?
That is correct, and I'm actively soliciting help from all angles. I'm even making some inroads with the Libertarian Party in North Carolina because generally speaking, Libertarians are very pro Second Amendment.
Well, that's great. And recently, I just sent a young fellow your way to Grassroots North Carolina, and he seems like a real hard worker, and I think he'd be great for y'all. So I sent him y'all's way as well.
Appreciate it.
But today we are talking about a bill that kind of got buried amongst the chaos that was happening before the cutoff deadline, and that is HB 189, otherwise known as the constitutional carry or permitless carry bill. So, Mr. Stevens, why don't you walk us into that? You take us however you want to go about that.
All right. Well, yeah. First of all, the bill in question is House Bill 189. It had successfully gone through two committees the day prior of the crossover deadline. It was renamed the NC Freedom to Carry Act because of a training requirement that was requested by the House Speaker, Tim Moore. A training requirement was added into the bill that would technically not make it a true constitutional carry bill. However, it was a vast improvement over where we are currently, where we have, for the most part, we have a concealed carry permit system that works reasonably well for people that want reciprocity in other states and things of that nature. However, we have had, over the last several years, 4 or 5 sheriffs out of the 100 who have taken it upon themselves to delay or deny or arbitrarily step in between a lawful citizen and their right to carry, and particularly in Mecklenburg County with the Mecklenburg County Sheriff. And I'll discuss that in a little bit because there's a bit of good news. Our lawsuit is finally going to be heard on that case, and I'll mention that here shortly. So anyhow, this bill actually would have allowed several things. First and foremost, it would allow all North Carolinians in North Carolina who are currently able to possess a firearm lawfully to carry concealed in North Carolina. It would not grant reciprocity in other states. That's important for people that travel, that you do want to have a permit that does that. Secondly, it would have created or fixed a situation where 18 to 21-year-olds would be allowed to carry as well. And again, federal legislation and the gun control that was passed in the last year that President Biden is touting as the most successful gun control in a year, that unfortunately was also voted on favorably by our own Senator Tom Tillis. This created a class of second-class citizens. It created citizens in the ages of 18 to 21 who have to undergo special hoops and bells and whistles to lawfully purchase firearms now as a result of that legislation. So it has already been determined unconstitutional in one federal court, so we expect that it will be overturned. Of course, again, the wheels of justice through the court system take a very long time. But getting back to House Bill 189, it was summarily pulled from the floor at the very last minute. They were going into dinner break, and as they were going into dinner break on the day of crossover, it was going to be one of the last 3 bills heard. And then suddenly they decided that they were going to pull the bill. And there's probably a number of considerations for it, but most foremost and most importantly, probably because it did not have the support of the NC Senate. It did not have the support of Senator Phil Berger and his senators. And that's very strange because Senator Berger was very, very good at getting past Senate Bill 41, which gave us a repeal of the pistol purchase permit. Why he suddenly decided that it wasn't necessary to pass constitutional carry, or in this case, a limited form of constitutional carry, we don't quite understand at the grassroots level. And we don't quite understand the statement that he made after the fact. And I have that statement in front of me, which I'll read in word for word. And this is what Senator Berger had said. We have passed a substantial bill dealing with some concerns about the Second Amendment. That's talking about Senate Bill 41. Mm-hmm. We have done away with the pistol purchase permit, which was the #1 goal of many of the gun rights groups for a long period of time. And this is with emphasis added by me. I just don't know if there is a need for us to delve into additional issues dealing with guns. This came from our Senate leader of a Senate supermajority who had just been told that they have a House supermajority as well that could easily pass this bill if they had the will to do it. So we're at an impasse right now. However, we're not giving up. I've spoke with Paul Vallone, president of GRNC. We are going to be sending another open letter out here in the next day or so to both Senator Berger and House Speaker Moore, telling them that they need to move this bill, that they need to not take the vote of gun rights voters for granted. It's very important that they deal with that. Additionally, we've been running our petition for constitutional carry on various social media sites, and we now have approximately 4 times the number of petitions that we dropped off in Speaker Moore's office back a few weeks ago. So the interest from the gun owning and gun voting citizens in North Carolina is strong. And regardless of the NRA's position, which took a position that they didn't want to see this bill at all, where are they fighting then to create a bill that they would want to see passed here in North Carolina? They are not taking any action. They have stepped away from the fight. They summarily dismissed this bill as not being a good bill, when in fact it would be an improvement over the current situation in North Carolina. And that, in North Carolina, we've always taken incremental steps in gun rights. We've never been able to go, full bore. So getting a step forward next year after the election, we're hoping to have a conservative governor, conservative lieutenant governor, supermajorities in the legislature. It'll just take a simple majority to pass this stuff, but it would be much, much better politically right now for these people that are running for office and running for re-election to not have to stand and defend themselves and say why they didn't want to pass it now when they had the ability to do so. So again, as a gun rights advocate, I'm a little miffed at our politicians who play politics and take our votes for granted. And what I would say to all your viewers here is, as these politicians are running around now starting to make their case for getting reelected, they need to be asked, direct questions. Why are you standing against passing, a form of constitutional carry in North Carolina?
Well, it's so frustrating. You just touched on this. It's so frustrating because these Republicans run on the platform of we are pro Second Amendment whenever they very well do not act like it. Now, you did mention that SB 41, they were able to get that through. And Phil Berger could lead the charge and do the same exact thing with this if he wanted to. And
exactly. And not only that, but there's another good gun bill that actually originated in the Senate. It's called Senate Bill 343, and it's the Protect Children in Private Schools bill. Mm-hmm. While Senate Bill 41 did create a correction to a church loophole in that starting December 1st, if you attend a church worship service in a church that has a co-located school, you can now legally carry concealed with a concealed carry permit in that church. However, during the course of the week when that school is in session, these private schools cannot provide their own security. They have to go out and either hire an outside security at some cost. They are not afforded what the public schools get, which are SROs, provided for by the counties or the municipalities. And so Senate Bill 343 would allow such private schools, their boards of directors, the leadership of those organizations, to be able to provide for protection for their own facilities during the school days. The North Carolina legislature is very strong about school choice, and we're very firmly behind that. We need to get students the opportunity to get the best education they can. That no longer is the case ordinarily in the public schools, where they are being more indoctrinated than they are being taught to read, write, and do arithmetic. However, it's very important that these school kids, as they transition, and we can see that a number of students will move from the public schools to these private schools, they are going to be going into a high threat environment because some of these schools, again, are known to not be able to provide protection, cannot afford to provide both the teaching and the security that's necessary. And this bill would go a long way to fix it. So we're going to be asking Senator Berger as well to move this bill forward so that these private schools can provide protection for our precious children that are attending these schools. It's a shame that, as you mentioned, a party that stands behind the Second Amendment, they almost wear it like a flag, but they're so adamant about actually doing anything more than being pushed and prodded and actually having to be embarrassed into just taking a stand on some of these issues. I'm looking for strong conservative leadership in all the statewide functions of government here in the coming election, to change this direction. The Democrats are very clear about what they would do. They would have abortion past birth. They would take away all your rights of the Second Amendment if given the opportunity. And our next vote could end it all if we don't continue to elect majorities that are conservative. But at the same time, conservatives need to stand up for what they believe in, and they need to take a firm stand, and they need to stop looking the other way and looking behind their backs and bending their will to the will of the left.
It is frustrating because if Republicans would go ahead and solve the problems, then they would have no platform to run on in their next election. So it's almost as if it's strategic. And I mean, we could sit here and argue if that's strategic all day long or not, but they should be going in there doing what they said that they would do. And if they're not doing that, then you should be voting them out.
Exactly. And I have always firmly said that everywhere that every election should be contested at every level. There should be primaries for it. Nobody's entitled to re-election just because they're a good guy to do the right thing. They need to be tested, and they need to be tested, and the public needs to see them. But to your point of not having something to run on, unfortunately, many times our government grows because they find things to continue to do. What we need is a conservative legislature that will take the next session and look at eliminating laws that we no longer need to reduce restrictions, reduce the burdens of government, downsize the government. But they're always incrementally creeping up and adding more and more. That all being said, I will say this about the legislature, of course, but one exception. And this was snuck into the SB 20 abortion bill that made a misdemeanor charge of assault on a female now a permanent gun prohibition. We haven't seen any bad gun legislation pass through the chambers. And again, if you go look at the bills that were filed by the opposing party, the Democrats, you would see bills that would take away our castle doctrine, our right to defend ourselves in our own homes. We would actually lose our so-called assault weapons, anything resembling assault weapon, large capacity magazines. They would take that all away in a heartbeat. And again, that's why it's important. Every election is important. So I can't emphasize that enough. And I can't emphasize, as we see all these politicians running around here now for the next 10 months trying to get reelected in the next cycle, we need to ask them these difficult. Don't be afraid to ask them. And if they're not willing to give you a straight answer, you may not want to vote for that individual because, again, it's very important. I know certain people are very straightforward, and other people are politicians. They speak with a forked tongue, and they avoid giving an answer when an answer is necessary. We need politicians willing to answer the question, and we need politicians willing to stand behind a Republican platform if they're running as Republican, and certainly if we have a supermajority, we expect on these important platform issues that there should be no variance within that supermajority. That is the platform that's not subject to debate. So we should expect that they would be, in agreement that this is a necessary and good thing to do.
Yes, and I want to touch on something that you just mentioned. You were talking about the assault style weapons. So a very popular topic has been the stabilizing braces that the ATF redefined and would make several people felons. So, could you touch on that?
Certainly, a lot of developments on that. Of course, we just ended the 120-day grace period where, again, the government violated the rules. There is a tax stamp required to register a NFA firearm. They arbitrarily waived the payment of that tax. That wasn't a law written by Congress saying they could waive that, but they gave you 120 days if you wanted to submit to the will of government to register your firearm. Turns out that about 255,000 people took that step out of a number estimated at the low end by the BATFE themselves at 3 million to 8 million, to other congressional sources indicating that the number of these legally owned pistol-braced weapons number in the 10 to 40 million range. So what we have seen here is massive non-compliance to a government edict to submit to a registration. There's several lawsuits that are currently pending, and several injunctions have been specifically enacted for particular groups of people. And if you happen to be a member of Gun Owners of America, I'll tell my own organization who filed a lawsuit. If you happen to be a member of the Firearms Policy Coalition who's filed lawsuits, or if you happen to be a member of the Second Amendment Foundation, you are now protected from the overreach of government while these cases move through the courts. In the FPC case in Texas, they're asking for an expedited hearing, and I believe the briefs are going to be dropped on that at the end of this month, June the 29th. So that's about 2 weeks away, and we'll see what happens as that goes forward. But right now, out of those 40 million people, if you're not a member of one of these three organizations, technically you haven't registered because you're not part of that 255,000 out of that 40 million, and you're not one of these members of these three groups that possibly number another 3 or 4 or 5 million in total. You are now a felon in possession of a banned device that the BATFE themselves for the last 10 years said was lawful and encouraged you to buy. What's particularly troubling is that these braces weren't designed to be concealed, and they weren't designed to make a weapon more lethal. They were designed by veterans to allow disabled veterans the ability to handle safely firearms. And so what the BATFE is actually doing is taking away an aid for someone who is handicapped to be able to better utilize a device, and considering it a lethal weapon subject to government overregulation.
It is very frustrating because, as you just mentioned, the ATF for so long has said a stabilizing brace is legal. Wait, never mind, it's not. And then they come back, actually, you know what? We decided it's okay. And they've kept on changing their minds so many times that now it's confusing so many people. So thank you for clearing some of that up. And
not only is that unclear to people, but the bureau director himself before
yes.
Congress perjured himself by saying that you could simply disassemble the two pieces and be in compliance with his law, which in the reality the law does not give you that opportunity. If you have it, it's called constructive possession, and they will treat you like a criminal because they assume that you're going to take those two pieces and make it into an illegal contraband registered and restricted firearm. So even the director of the BATFE himself doesn't even know, because the law was 293 pages long to tell you basically that anything you own that looked like one of those things makes it illegal for you to own it without registration.
Yeah, and just to all of our viewers, just remember, always remember that Congress has the ability to make law, not the ATF or any other three-letter agency out there. Congress.
And we're hoping the Supreme Court moves rather rapidly in the direction of doing it. If they take the right action, we can see perhaps coming down the pike the greatest reduction of over-regulation of the federal government probably in our life. Well, your lifetime is a lot shorter than mine, but certainly in my lifetime, because I've seen nothing but the growth of regulation at the federal level. And this will roll it back, whether it be EPA, whether it be all types of other issues. This bureaucratic rulemaking, again, that usurped the role of Congress, if it gets canceled, it's going to wipe the books clean of hundreds of regulations that over the years have been created without the intent of Congress to do so.
Yeah, and so how can people stay in the loop of what is happening with HB 189?
Well, again, if you're not subscribed to our GRNC alerts, go to our website, grnc.org, sign up for the alerts. You don't have to become a member. You don't have to pay any money. It just gives you, and then you'll get our updates. Like I say, we will be sending an open letter to Senator Berger and House Speaker Moore here in the next couple of days, again, asking them to move this. That's for North Carolina related issues. Obviously, that's the best source for that. For the federal issues, I would suggest, again, doing the same thing at Gun Owners of America. Go to Gun Owners of America, sign up for their alerts. Again, you don't have to become a member, although we certainly encourage you to become members of both organizations. Support the groups that support your rights. Like you say, we don't. I do this as a volunteer, but it still takes money and things to run a website and to send out emails and to do all the types of things that we do. So those two organizations, Gun Owners of America and Grassroots North Carolina, here in North Carolina. That being said, I do want to make one last comment about again the lawsuit that's currently pending in Mecklenburg County against the Mecklenburg County Sheriff. Back in November last year, we filed and I say we, both organizations jointly, GOA and GRNC, filed a lawsuit against the Mecklenburg County Sheriff Gary McFadden over his slow walking and denying of concealed handgun permits. At the time, there were over 7,300 permit applicants who had been waiting, in some cases, up to a year to get a permit issued. The wheels of justice turn very, very slowly. We have finally now have set a court date for June the 20th, which is next Tuesday, in federal court in Mecklenburg County in Charlotte. So hopefully, sometime Tuesday afternoon, we'll have a feel for what might be happening. But what we certainly hope in filing the lawsuit is twofold. Number one, that we'll get the Mecklenburg County Sheriff to actually do what virtually 95% of the sheriffs in North Carolina do, which is issue concealed handgun permits on a timely basis to lawful applicants. But number two, we're hoping that the judge will strike down as unconstitutional the whole health mental records check system that is creating this bottleneck, because it creates an unnecessarily long delay that has no benefit to anybody. And actually, we're hoping, like I say, to get two outcomes. One to beat the Mecklenburg County Sheriff again, and we beat him already once with the pistol purchase permits back last year while they were still in force. And number two, to strike down this health mental records check bottleneck that keeps people from getting permits issued on a timely basis. So you might want to check back with me at the end of the month, and we'll see how we fare in that lawsuit there.
All right, sounds good. So everyone listening here, you definitely want to go sign up for the alerts at GRNC. You definitely want to go sign up for the alerts at GOA. And there are several other good organizations out there, but I have come to find out that these two organizations right here, you can't go wrong with. They have news when you need it, y'all. So make sure you sign up for that. Mr. Stevens, thank you so much for coming on again and making time for us. I know that life's busy and stuff happens, but you always seem to make time for us, so we appreciate that.
Well, and again, I appreciate talking to you. Look forward to it anytime you have a question or an issue. And again, for the viewers out there, feel free if you have questions or anything. I'm active on Facebook. I'm active on Twitter. You can find me without too much trouble at either of those places. By all means, like you say, keep the feet to the fire on these politicians. Again, they're going to be out. It's political campaign season. They're going to be everywhere. They're going to be at the barbecues. They're going to be at the picnics. Ask them why they're standing between you and your Second Amendment rights here in North Carolina.
That's very true. When they feel the heat, they see the light, as
there
people say. So, and as you were just saying, if you have any questions, if you can't contact him, try to contact me. If you can't get up with me, you can get up with anyone that knows me. And if anyone wants to volunteer with Grassroots North Carolina, reach out to anyone part of their group or come contact me somehow, and I will make sure that you guys get with these fine folks here. So with that, thank y'all for watching. We'll see y'all on the next one.